Anyway, I said, sighing, I'm off. Not now, but it will happen. I'll miss you, I said, giving her a nudge. You won't go. You love me too much, she jested. Tell me about Jay, I said, changing the subject, knowing that she was right. I did think the world of her, but I knew it wasn't mutual. I was leaving, and I'd told her. That was the best I could offer. We linked arms and walked down the hill just as it started snowing. It was beautiful. We got to the bottom of the hill and jumped up into a tree as the snow was getting heavier. There wasn't much room, but we were well covered and it was warm enough. Louise had no coat but a thick jumper on. Want my coat? I asked her. No, I'm fine, she said, staring into the snow. I'd known her over 2 years and listened to her every complaint. She'd heard of a lot of mine too. I didn't realise it until I'd decided to leave. She was the most important person to me at the time. She turned her light green eyes to mine and said, as long as you love me. Sorry, I replied. I wasn't up on the latest music. Although loneliness has always been a friend of mine, I'm leaving my life in your hands. She sang it all the way through. It's Jay's, she told me. I laughed, secretly wishing it was mine. Last week it was Toby's, I said teasingly. Shut up, she told me with a nudge. I'd never seen Louise as more than a friend, but in that moment, under that tree with the stars and the snow, she was beautiful. I sat there with her and me, singing for hours. Then we walked home. You'll get in trouble for being late, you know, she told me. I shrugged. I'm leaving, remember? She smiled and closed her front door. Now, where the fuck am I gonna go? Nigel was at my house. It was still winter out, so we were allowed to play Stratego quietly in the dining room. Stratego is a game where you find bombs and beat players by having a higher rank or finding the main piece. The pieces are invisible to the other player. I was depressed, but didn't realise it at the time. I just knew I wanted to be as far away from Brenda and Jim as possible, and I was forced to play inside. I'd much preferred to have been in the middle of a field camping. Nigel kept saying I'd hit his bombs, so I was losing terribly, until I realised he'd said bomb more times than there were bombs in the whole game. You're lying, I told him flatly. He looked at me blankly. Want me to show you my pieces? He asked, lying to my face. Yeah, I said, leaning over him and grabbing his wrist fast. He tried to counter as I attempted a wrist lock and palmed me in the chest. As I went backwards, I flipped his wrist aside, stepped in, grabbed his elbow and threw him towards the conservatory. It was half serious, half pissing about. I intended for him to land on the carpet in the conservatory itself. I didn't realise the clear door was closed. There was a thud, followed by a vibration. He staggered and came at me fist up. This time I was angry. I sidestepped, blocked and threw him again, this time fully intended for him to go through the window. He hit it face first as Brenda appeared behind me. Tracie! She screamed. I stood still, slumped. Here we go again. Nigel, what happened? She asked him politely. He threw me at the door, Nigel said, pointing to and from, his chin to the clear window, his hair still miraculously in place. Tracie, is that true? She asked me. She saw me while fighting. Yeah, I replied. Nigel, I'll have to take you home. Tracie, it's bedtime, she told me. Nigel lived 6 houses away. Why don't you just throw me out? I asked her calmly. We've had many children here, Tracie, and never thrown anyone out. We help everyone, she responded. Whatever, I replied, walking up the stairs. Summertime had come around again. Louise and her friends were playing football with us, opposite the farm. The ball kept going in the nettles, near some big concrete posts that used to hold the fence up. I used to get the ball, mostly, not because of heroism, but simply because I was looking for places to hide if I could ever find a way to escape Brenda's place. At night, I'd think of a new way of getting down the stairs and out the front door. Since I'd moved in, they'd put in 2 extra bedroom extension and a garage. Maybe I could climb onto that. I was up to my ankles in nettles when Nigel pushed me in. It was a bit of a laugh. Although it hurt, I let it go. The same thing happened again the next time the ball went in, although this time Louise pushed Nigel in the nettles. Nigel chased Louise and we all laughed. Shortly afterwards, Louise kicked the ball and was told to go and get it when Nigel went to push her. I shouted, Lou, at the right moment, but she slipped and scratched her leg. I was only joking, man, he said to me genuinely. I helped Louise up and turned to Nigel and pushed him hard into one of the posts. I was only joking, man, I mimicked. He went home shouting, You've changed. You used to be all right. He was right too. In my head, what should have happened was Nigel pushes Louise, and she slips, then gobs off, and we carry on playing. However, what actually happened was that I saw Louise's leg. I saw the cut and I felt numb. Cut, man, hurt, woman, drop him, and so I did. I wasn't thinking these things through. I was seeing things other people weren't, and it was messing me up, both inside and out. And coming away from the story for a very brief second, I've written this, and so far everything that I've written has been 110% fact, and I've only just realised that I missed a bit out here. He was my friend, and yes, I pushed him into the post. He came towards me from being on the post, and I lamped him, and he ended up on his back. And as he got up, I hit him a couple more times. I wasn't a nice person at this time. I was not a nice person at all. But me retelling the facts, they need to be told properly. And I didn't do that little segment justice when I wrote that out. This lad, all the names have been changed. What did I call him here? I called him Nigel. Nigel didn't deserve me at that time and was actually a really decent guy. Now back to the story. By now I was doing an after-school paper round, which used to be Nigel's, but he no longer had the time for. So if I was lucky, I didn't have to eat with everyone else if I was a little late. I didn't like eating with them. However, I'd become more used to it. I enjoyed listening to Bob's adventures. Nobody else concerned me. I was also doing scouts and swimming lessons as well as school. It wasn't enough for me. Although I'd done 2 Cheshire hikes, both times doing really well, I wanted more. I needed the burn of my legs aching, feet hurting from hauling a rucksack 30 plus kilometres in the blistering heat, or the stab of pain as another graze opens up on my arm. Anything to take my mind off the darkness. The part of me that had no clue who I was or where I was going. It came about in an odd way. I'd taken the habit of going to the library after my paper round. Brenda thought I was reading about Egypt or whatever the latest school thing was at the time. I wasn't. I'd started reading war books and basic history books. They soon progressed to SAS novels, and to date I've read everything by Andy McNabb. However, back then I was working my way through the Soldier A to Z SAS series. I rarely saw Mel. She was a girl from school who I'd said hi to and was very much a tomboy. I didn't realise I cared about her at all until I saw her on her way to the library with her wrists covered in bandages. "Bloody hell, Mel, what happened to you?" I said without thinking. Naturally, my mind jumped to the worst conclusion. She asked. "Your wrists. Shit, what did you do? You can always talk to me, you know." I asked again genuinely. "Boxing," she replied. It was my turn to be articulate. I asked. "Monday, Wednesday, Friday, up there," she said, pointing at a hill behind the library. "See you at 6:45, outside. Bring bandages and joggers." I asked Brenda what she thought of me doing a sport, and she was all for golf, football, cricket or swimming, but not boxing. Perfect. I went a few times, and absolutely loved it. However, money was hard to find, and excuses were even harder. In the end, whenever I got the chance, I would sit up at the embankment and watch everyone training. I'd copy the moves at a distance, and when they ran, I'd run on the spot. When they were doing their exercises, I'd do the same. When Sal hadn't turned up for another contact, I was trying not to think about it, and at the same time I was starting to be interested in girls. Her name was Paula. She was born small and loved football. I used to play with her whenever I got the chance. Green eyes, quite dark with long brown hair. One day, still in school uniform, she invited me into the house. Up entering the hall, she had a stand-up piano. "Wow, can you play?" I asked. She winked and pulled a folder out, and another. One had sheet music on, the other had her awards in it. She'd been playing since she was 6, and she was qualified to teach. "Want to see?" she said, flipping her legs over the seat. I caught a glimpse of her legs and knickers. Yeah, play, I stuttered, admiring her legs. She sounded awesome. I had no idea what she was playing. Her fingers moved magically and her leg was touching mine. I didn't care what she was playing. Later, we went outside to play football, as usual, until it was time for her to go in. I'd started thieving as another distraction. Pencils, pens and other stationery. Anything I could nick and sell that they had a lot of. It funded the boxing, and my smoking, which started around the same time as the thieving. Brenda's packed lunches now got given away at lunch, and it was up to the chip shop with my friends Cap and Keel for a chip pap. Keel was ginger, comical and friendly. He always tried keeping me out of trouble. His dad was rumoured to be an English angel biker, although we all knew he was a carpenter. He smoked, and I'd go to the local shop at lunch to get served for him, despite being underage. He was overage, but he could never get served. Cap looked a lot like me. Thin frame, same height, but with more dark hair and a bigger nose. And lots of people mistook us for one another. Mainly the teachers. Most of the school didn't get served, so I'd spend lunch there charging 20 pence or a ciggy to go in for them, and it all added up. Graham was small and round, without fat. He had short-shaved hair and was the cock of the school. I'd seen him at boxing, but I'd never seen him in the ring. Apparently he was very good. We rarely spoke to one another, simply because our circle of friends was not the same. However, one day our circles mixed, and I found myself on the field eating lunch, whilst his circle of friends sat smoking. I was still debating the best way to get away from Brenda's. My problem was simple. I had nowhere to go, and didn't know where Wenzel was when Cat piped up. "Hey, what about Stoppy?" "Who's he?" I asked Cat. "I'll introduce you. Don't worry about a thing," he said, patting my shoulder. It felt good. At the same time I was cautious. Cap was a good lad, but he might think his best for me might not be best for me. His heart was in the right place, but was his mind? We were back on the school field a couple of days later, Keel, Cap and I all off to meet a guy called Stoppy. "Why is he called Stoppy?" I asked Cap, who just looked at me and then at Keel. "You'll see, mate," Keel said, twiddling a match in his teeth. A huge round fella in a leather jacket came over to us from the other side of the field. He was walking an equally big pit bull dog on a big thick chain. He was completely bald and worked at the circus putting up rides and general labouring. He had his own place and was in his early 30s. However, he had the mental age of 6 years less than his actual age. And otherwise, he seemed sound. He was called Stoppy because nothing could stop him. He agreed to meet me alone the next day at lunch, just me and him, to discuss things. "Cool," I said. I had a word with Keel later and gave him some money. He skipped a school period and came back with a G10 pellet firing handgun for me. It was jet black and metal. If I was leaving, I wanted protection. It wouldn't do much, but it would scare the shit out of someone if I pulled it out. Chapter 27. It was a hot day, and half the school had decided to skive off, which wasn't that unusual. I'd got 100% attendance for my first 2 years of high school, then a hazy few months, which was the stage I was in now. Our bags were behind the goalposts on the field. Mine was further back next to Graham's, where I knew it wouldn't be touched. He was low on it, whilst the other lads played football, and he was smoking. "What's this?" he said, reaching into my bag, after realising something hard was in it. "It's a Tampax," I said, trying to change the subject and make a joke out of it. "A what?" he said, ignoring me and pulling the gun out admiringly. "Real?" he said, with his eyes on mine. "No, mate, watch." I pulled the top sliding catch back and removed the safety with my thumb, flipped the plastic front up and placed a 177 pellet into it, moved the plastic back down level with the barrel, and then put the slide back into place with a click. "Also fires BBs, I said. "BB?" he asked. "Ball bearings, mate," I told him. "Oh, okay. Hey, guys, Tracie's got a gun, look," he shouted. "Fuck's sake, Gray, shut up," I said hurriedly. "You don't have the balls to use it," he said, standing up beside me. His eyes were meeting mine. I picked up some kind of threat. This wasn't going to end in my favour. He could outfight me in seconds, and I knew it. If I backed down, I'd lose the gun, and keep getting ribbed that Gray had beat me in a fight. "Who?" I asked, reading him easily, and walking straight into trouble myself. "You choose," he said, waving his arm towards the lads playing football, as though they were all disposable, and all belonged to him. I shrugged. "Stuart, here a minute," I shouted. Now, I'd never had an issue with Stuart. He was a good-looking lad with semi-blonde fanny parting. The girls loved him. Maybe I was jealous. "Yeah, what, mate?" he said, full of smiles and a body that belonged in the movies. I pointed his gun at the leg. "Nah, mate, we're cool," he said, leaning backwards as I pulled the trigger and hit him in the thigh. "Fuck!" Graham let out, bouncing around from foot to foot with excitement. "You shot him," he said, looking less confident now. "Be alright," I answered dismissively. Stuart was on the floor